And my story, before I moved here, is a comeback story with trumpeter swans as well as myself. So I was very ill, and I kind of say I was an ugly duckling. A lot of people didn't believe me and kind of left my life. And so I'm gonna try not to cry. I live by these ponds, and these swans. I learned from a couple who were volunteer drivers because I didn't have a car. It was a tiny little town in Erin, and my doctor's was in Orangeville, so these people volunteered. And I find out that their name is Mr. and Mrs. Soul, and that they, the swans in our ponds, they helped raise for 25 years because of one man, Harry Lunson. So it's funny, you know, when I was driving here and I kind of bypassed it and saw the farmer's market, 1848, right? Well, there are still trumpeter swans in Ontario in 1848. So imagine this, 1888. The last trumpeter swan shot. So Harry Lunson, he was a retired biologist, and he wanted to leave something as a legacy. So he knew trumpeter swans were from Ontario, and he found 6 eggs from Alaska. And so from 6 eggs in 1982, there's over like 2,000 swans now. And a lot of them have actually even gone into the States, the United States. So I met him, and when I met him, I said, you know, the swan saved my life. And he said to me, many people have told him that. So as I was kind of collapsing and trying to find a place to live, their winter home was being threatened, you know, and they'd already fought to come back. And, you know, it was the human greed. They wanted this boating dock, and I'm not going to get into all that. But anyways, I took a lot of photos, so then I started fundraising. Even though my life was in total crisis, I started fundraising for their home with calendars. So, yeah, I'm going to be writing a story. I've actually started a Substack to share more of my photography, because it kind of feels like the last few years, my life, maybe yours too, has been in survival mode again with the world. Maybe I was kind of, you know, I had to go through it personally before with everyone collectively. But, you know, as Mr. Rogers would say, when the world looks cruel, look for the helpers. And, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Soul were kind-hearted people in a cruel world. And there's, you know, a few in this community who are kind-hearted in a cruel world too. So I thank you. And I should just, you know, actually say, I'm glad I didn't end my life, because that's where I was at. At the time, Mr. Soul, because I said I was going to write a story, Mr. Soul had written 25 years of his rearing the swans, him and his wife. And when I was in my darkest moments, saying, you know, like, goodbye, cruel world, if you will, I found out a couple months later, there's Mr. Soul learning to work on the computer to give me 40 pages of short stories. So, you know, I just say, you know, who would he have handed those stories to? So now you know, life is so precious to me, like, you know, to be able to write Paul's story, to write Gary's story, and there's another elder, Big Tree, he couldn't make it. So just the people that I meet now, it's like I'm still alive, you're still alive, and we've collided, and the souls really, you know, we have a soul that brought me back to, I'm not just this flesh and body, and I'm soul too, and that's what the swans, I think I'm maturing into a swan from an ugly duckling, so thank you so much.